Hello friends at Powerhouse Bakery and my favorite divas and dudes. Hope you're having a great day and you're eating something healthy. I would love to show you some great information around fats. And so if this is your first time joining us, I'm Suzanne Parker and I'm the founder of Powerhouse Bakery. And what we do here is show the world that healthy can taste amazing. We have some very interesting bars here in front of me. We are in the middle of a fun series called Digging Into Nutrition. And over the last few sessions, we've been talking about the macronutrients. And when I talk about macronutrients, I'm specifically referring to the categories that food is available to us. And so you can always narrow it down to 3 food groups: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. While most foods are going to have a blend of these macronutrients, it doesn't take much study in the world of nutrition to see that this description is king. Helping people understand what they need, how much they need, and deciphering the all-important food label is all built around the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fats that are in different food products. And today I want to talk with you about the food label and the secrets that it keeps. If you've ever been to any of my classes, one thing that I really emphasize is to be a very informed consumer. So often the marketing of food really plays on our hopes and desires to have a healthy body and to gain healthy foods to fuel our body. So our desire for health is big business. Our desire to not only look great, but feel great and have young and longevity is something that people are always in hot pursuit of. Always looking for a magic pill and something that's going to cure our aches and pains of aging and prevent body fat and increase muscle. And if we just eat a bar, all of our problems will be solved, right? That's absolutely what the marketing wants to convince you of. And today what I want us to do is be really critical consumers. I want us to be able to look at the information on these bars that are touted as a healthy snack. I want to talk about what the word snack sort of conjures up in our minds, and just in and of itself can be a dangerous assumption that a snack food is not only necessary, but it means that you pick from a certain group of foods, and I think that's a dangerous assumption. So when we think of a snack, what does that need to be? Does it need to be in a wrapper, or does it need to be in something that is easily transportable? And so as we go through the session, I want you to take notes and think about what bars you are attracted to. What lifestyle formula appeals to you? We oftentimes talk about the diet world and what is kind of in fashion. And of course, right now we've got a lot going on in the nutrition world as far as in vogue. We know that, of course, gluten-free, which is Powerhouse Bakery. But honestly, I opened Powerhouse Bakery to show that gluten-free does not necessarily mean healthy. It means free of gluten. And so breaking down that term and really understanding it is important. Just like when we look at different diet types. So keto, paleo, vegan, and even just looking at the front of pack of some of the labels that I have, they try to shout out things that we, or terms that we think are going to appeal to the consumer. And so whether it be one of these or it be something similar, like in this bar, grain-free, just because it says a front of pack slogan or a call out, as we say, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a healthy choice. So those of you that know that I worked for HEB before I opened Powerhouse Bakery, one of the things I had to answer in my job as a health and wellness director is, what is healthy? So when we think of that big question, what is healthy? you've heard me say it depends. It depends on what we're trying to accomplish. If you lived in Africa and you were 30% of your ideal body weight, meaning you are very underweight, what is healthy would be quite different than somebody that lives in Louisiana, USA, and is perhaps 30 pounds overweight. So that person that's 30 pounds overweight, what would be healthy for them is going to look very different on their package than it is for the person that needs to gain weight. But it all boils down to our macronutrients. So we still absolutely care about the protein, the carbs, and the fats in the food that we're deciding on, that we're qualifying as to whether or not it's healthy. So as we go through these, I want you to think about what diet type or what situation is important for you. For example, if you have a diagnosis of diabetes, or you know you have high blood pressure, or you're a cancer survivor, what qualities in the food are important to you? And that's when we're going to start really deciphering what products are going to reach out to us. So here's an interesting topic to jump right in. This bar says, "This saves lives." So the first thing I think of is the lifestyle that is emerging called the vegan. This particular person doesn't care as much about the nutrition as they do about the planet. So the planet health is really important. The nutrition is important, but it almost becomes a badge of honor that these people are choosing foods that save the planet or that minimize waste in our garbage piles. So much of this becomes what we choose to be and choose to represent. And so that's an important variation. When we go on to look at this bar, now it's got a little bit more front of pack. It'll tell us the flavor, dark chocolate, peanut butter, but it doesn't really say anything else on the front of pack, which again tells me that it's probably gearing towards a lifestyle. The next thing we'll do is go to the back label, and it says, "Buy a bar, feed a child. We eat together." So there again, it's looking more at a philosophy than nutrition. So again, we have to ask ourselves, why are we choosing what we're choosing? So this person wants to be identified as someone that cares about people and cares about their planet. And then we go to the next step of what's in it. So we have to flip open that under flip, and now we get to see the nutrition facts panel. This one has 9 grams of fat for one bar, which is 180 calories. It has 3 grams of saturated fat, 0 cholesterol, and then it goes on to talk about the carbohydrates and fiber and sugars and protein. So how do we know that's healthy? We will have to have some basis to decide how does that level up against healthy. So now we have to understand the nutrition facts label and what it's trying to give us as a comparison. So if we look a little farther at this particular bar, we see amount per serving, and we see a percent DV. So a percent DV means a percent of the daily value. That is going to be where we get a general shot in the dark of how many calories does the average person need. So again, when we're deciding on what is healthy, whether we're in Africa and we are 30 pounds underweight, or we're in Louisiana, we're 30 pounds overweight, we're now deciding that a daily value for the typical person, maybe a typical American, should be 2,000 calories. That becomes our comparison. So a daily value is saying that your daily value should be this amount of calories. If you go into MyFitnessPal and you type in your height and your weight and your age and maybe even your fitness level, which again is very subjective, it's going to give you what your daily value should be. And it might be 2,800 calories or it might be 1,800 calories, somewhere based in that number. But using our nutrition facts panel, it's going to use 2,000 calories. So when we look at this particular bar, it has 180 of our 2,000 and it has 9 grams of fat. It goes on to tell us that that becomes 12% of our total daily requirement, again, based on 2,000. Now, that still doesn't give us a lot of valuable information. So let's hold on to that thought, and I'm going to keep going through these bars. But at least now we understand that the daily value is very arbitrary. The government has decided that we're going to help people understand what is healthy based on 2,000 calories. And I'm going to tell you right now, not many of us need 2,000 calories, which changes the whole dynamic of the nutrition facts panel. But at least we know what they're using it as an indicator. Let's go on to look at a couple more. These two are touted as love good fats, ridiculously delicious. We're in a fun zone right now that fats are absolutely touted as healthy. They're what we should include into our diet, and it allows bars to start going crazy on amounts of fat. So here I've got 2 different varieties, actually 3 different brands. Look how tiny this particular one is. This is one of my favorite examples. And in your handout, I'm going to show you the detail broken down a little more. So let me just show you this little handout so you can find it in yours. I'm going to be describing the Primal Kitchen, which is this little bar. And look at this. It gives us 40% of our daily value of fat. Crazy, right? Meaning, look at the tiny bar that's going to give us almost half of our fat supply. Tiny bar. This one, salted caramel and pecan. The front of pack label is going to tell us primal, grass-fed. That means you're part of a very cool group that knows primal is part of the keto and part of the paleo eating style. Whatever primal means, it must be good because they've got a whole group that follows it, right? So it's the whole marketing strategy of jump on the bandwagon, because if you want to go anywhere, you better follow us. Also, it'll tell us on this front of pack that it's non-GMO, verified. And so that's supposed to give us extra confidence that this bar is very healthy. It also is going to tell us how many grams of protein and fiber, only 1 gram of sugar. It's non-GMO, which is already stated here, gluten-free and grass-fed. So it's giving you this lineup of all these important things that make this bar a great choice. Now, if we look at this one, it is very similar. So again, it says paleo-friendly versus primal. So again, are we sure of those terms? Only if you're in the in crowd. This whole brand is called the Primal Kitchen. So we're starting to see some similarities, but as a common consumer, if we're not in the club, we're not going to really know what that means, but we get the impression that it's something desirable because it's on the front of pack. This one's also going to tell us it's very low in sugar, as well as this one, and 9 grams of protein, and this one gives us 13 grams of protein. So we already saw that this one had a lot of our saturated fat. This one, I think it's called Boo Fit, I also included in our breakdown. So if we compared the Primal Kitchen for 200 calories, how small this is, to the BHU or Boo Fit, which is just a tiny bit more calories, a little bit more fat, much less saturated fat. So only 15% of our daily value of saturated fat versus this one, which is a whopping 40%. So what makes these two so different? 40% saturated fat and of course under 10%. This one is, much less, only at 15. So it's They look very similar on the front of pack labeling, but are quite different in the total amount of fats and saturated fat. That's the key. Here's another one that I mentioned a bit earlier. It has 13 grams of fat, and when we look at the total amount of calories, 210. So not very many calories considering how many fat grams it's providing. Same thing with this one. It's convincing us that it's a valuable asset because it has so much fat. So we're trying to understand chocolate chip cookie dough flavor, and somehow this being a good choice. It has no sugar, which means it's sweet somehow, and so it probably has some non-nutritive sweeteners in it, which is a whole nother question as to whether or not that's a healthy choice. So the takeaway is that the front of pack is teaching us some erroneous information. It's trying to convince us that being primal or keto is of value, and it's giving us some arbitrary numbers on the back which don't necessarily relate to our personal need for nutrition. When we look at the ingredients, that's the second phase where it becomes really helpful for us to understand what is it we're trying to identify as healthy. Here it says organic whey protein, grass-fed. So a cow was fed on grass, which is a very expensive way to raise cattle, and then the milk is extracted from the cow and it's freeze dried and turned into a powder, and then that's used in this product. Organic roasted sunflower seeds, which we know seeds are good. Organic prebiotic fiber from tapioca. And that's just a fancy word of saying a thickener. Or organic roasted pecans. Sunflower lecithin. So again, lecithin is not sunflower seeds. Lecithin is a thickener. So why do we need a thickener? Probably to make the bar edible. I'm not even sure if I can get this one open. It's half the battle. Some of the time these are so hard to open. So I'm not even going to try to open it, but it's going to be the same consistency as this one. So adding those thickeners and the binders makes it this homogeneous texture. But somehow we're supposed to understand that because it's grass-fed and it's prebiotic and it has some organic monk fruit in it, somehow makes this healthy. Same thing with the good fats. This one is a little bit more like the actual food type. It's instead of having a homogeneous goo that is moderate in protein and very high in fat, this one is being touted as bison. So it does have some protein, not any more than these homogeneous bars, but as we look at the nutrition facts, it has a little more similarity to an actual piece of meat. When we look at the Epic bar, for less calories than the Primal Kitchen, so about 70 calories less fat, and much less saturated fat. So then we have to decide, well, which one is better? And really, it all boils down to what do you want to use this bar for, and why would you want to carry around a chunk of meat or a chunk of sweet nut bar, I guess. So let's talk about that. I want to delve into what is a snack. Because so many foods that do have fats in them and have erroneous labels are in fact snack foods. And I picked the bar for us to really investigate because they are touted as a healthy snack. What I love to tell my clients is snacks can be dangerous because we think of them as being easy to grab and go. We think of them as being high flavor, so either sweet or salty, so kind of a treat food. And we think of them as being not something we had to prepare. So it's going to be in a package, so pre-prepared or packaged. My comment is always, how about if we use, instead of a snack food, we use some of our leftover meal? That way we are getting some protein and some carbohydrate and some fat, and we're really creating our own best foods list. I think it's dangerous when we use snack bars because they are very confusing when we try to identify, is this really healthy for me? Am I following keto or primal, or is it vegan, or am I trying to save the planet, or am I just trying to get some calories because I don't have anything and I haven't planned well and I'm hungry? Nothing wrong with that. But my challenge to you is, if you don't plan on a snack, maybe you'll plan on your meals and waiting until you have your lunch or your dinner, you're going to have an even better opportunity to have healthy foods. Let's keep going in this. On this omega bar, this is actually one that I really like. I used to use them myself, and they've changed their label up a bit because of all the competition that's going on in the bar world. They had to really get competitive. Why did I like this one? Let's look at the nutrition facts. Given the total calories, which is about 200, instead of being extremely high in fat like the fat bars, it's moderate. Instead of being very high in non-nutritive sweeteners so that it could say 1 gram of sugar, it's moderate in sugar. So we start getting something that, if I can't prepare a lunch or dinner and save it, or I can't wait until my next meal because I'm dying of hunger, then I probably want to try to find something that is fairly balanced. It's not going to be so low in sugar that it's going to make my blood sugar drop. It's not going to be so low in carbs. In fact, I want it to have some carbs. I want it to have some protein, because let's face it, if we're going to have a 200 calorie bar, it's got to have some macronutrients from all 3 of those categories. So let's look at this one. This is the Oat Mega Bar. It has 200 calories, 7 grams of fat, 13% are coming from the saturated sources, and sugars are going to be a total of 5, which is 8% of our daily value. So it's got some pretty good qualities. Again, it's going to be showing some ingredients that have erroneous qualities. Grass-fed whey concentrate, chicory root fiber is the number 2, gluten-free oats. Oats are a real food. I like that. That's a good thing. It has real food qualities. It does have some non-nutritive sweetener, but it also has some regular sweetener in there too, in order to get the carbohydrates up. So not a bad bar as far as trying to get an emergency food. You can usually buy these at the ice houses. It's harder to get these more esoteric bars. These are usually pretty available. So not a bad choice. Here's one, the Lara bar, that is probably even a little better. Why? Because when I look at the ingredients, they're very recognizable. So when I mentioned this one, I liked because there were oats in it. This one is going to have just fruits and nuts. So again, I have to discover the information in the back. They always try to hide it. Cashews, dates, chocolate chips, sea salt, and apples. So recognizable foods, and so I'm going to hope that it's going to at least come with the minerals and the vitamins that are in those foods. It's still processed, so when we talk about avoiding processed foods, all of the bars fall into that category. And that's why at first I mentioned that when a snack food is being touted to us as a great choice, we don't want to make that a normal routine. We want to make it an emergency choice. And that's because anytime we have processed foods, we know we're not going to get the very best ingredients. It's going to be second best. Second best ingredients, especially when it comes to fats. We know that in order to make any of these bars taste good, we learned in our previous video that flavor is a big seller. We know that fats are going to be included. And that's why these very unusual homogeneous looking squares are actually so yummy, because they're using a non-nutritive sweetener that does have high flavor of sweet, and it's loaded with fats. And that is going to be our trick. How do we have a snack food that is nutritious, that tastes good, and is still going to be the best ingredients, and not have to settle for second best? When we look at bars that have sugars and some complex carbohydrates from fruits and nuts, how does it compare to a good old Hershey bar? That is the big question. And wondering what would actually be better. If you're truly craving something sweet and you know that you're going to have a great meal coming up in an hour or two, who says a candy bar is any worse off than a Power Crunch or a This Saves Live or a grain-free or even an Oat Mega? Because the reality is, in any case, we're going to have some front of pack information that's not necessarily accurate, and it's just really trying to convince you to buy it. When we look at our good old Hershey bar, we see that we have 2 nutrition facts panel. Of course, who's going to only eat a third of this? But it gives us on the front of pack 130 calories for a third of the bar, which happens to be the exact same measurement as one of these bars. So if we ate a third of this bar, it's less calories, less fat, and less total sugar than our Primal Kitchen bar, which is shocking to me. So just like, it'd be very difficult to only eat a third of this bar, eating one of these bars is also going to be difficult in order to get enough to feel satiated. But I think that, in the olden days, 30 years ago, when we did not have any bars, and we actually had much less obesity, the Hershey bar was the traditional snack. And so I think it's amazing when we look at longitudinal study. So the way that we understand people through time. Bars became popular as a snack, and we get inundated with information that is confusing and erroneous at best, and we see our weight go up as a culture. 20 to 30 years ago, when a snack bar was just pure and simple, it had sugar, it had some fat, and it had a little bit of protein, but you knew you'd be getting your protein, carbohydrates, and fats at your meal. This became a treat that anybody could enjoy and not have to worry about obesity and diabetes and hypertension. So I'm not advocating eating bars that are chocolate or that are fruit-based or oat-based, but what I want us to do is be informed consumers and really understand that, are we going second best as our first choice? We don't want to have a snack bar that's highly processed, that is really just trying to sell us some glam on the top of the front of pack label. If we just want flavor, go for what you're really craving, and make sure that your meal is going to be healthiest when you get back to a place where you can have your very best choices, which are going to be protein from lean animal sources, from carbohydrates that are complex and rich in minerals and fiber, as well as protein, and some healthy fats. And don't forget, an avocado is great for travel. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you back soon.